Nicole Aniston was 37 years old. She lived in a stunning, architect-designed modern home in the Pacific Palisades, an exclusive enclave of Los Angeles where the air smelled of salt and eucalyptus, and the views of the ocean were as boundless as her bank account. Her annual income was a subject of both public record and private awe. Through a combination of her elite status as a performer, her savvy investments in several tech startups, and her ownership stake in a successful production company, she earned well over $1 million a year. She was the epitome of the girl-next-door fantasy, perfected and polished into a luxury brand. But the woman who sipped espresso on her infinity patio, her life a curated collection of perfect moments, was a far cry from the girl she had once been. That girl was named Nicole, and her story didn't begin in the California sun, but in the sprawling, anonymous suburbs of Dallas, Texas, under a sky that felt like a lid on a pot. She was a cheerleader. Not the dramatic reality TV kind, but the kind who was the backbone of the squad, reliable, sharp, and possessing a smile so bright and unwavering it could cut through the Friday night lights. Her family was middle-class and loving, if a little distant. Her future was a pre-drawn map: college at the University of Texas, a degree in marketing or communications, marriage to a nice boy from a good family, a house in a better suburb. It was a good life, a safe life. And it suffocated her. The cracks appeared in her sophomore year of college. The routines felt empty, the courses pointless. The nice boy, a business major named Chad with a firm handshake and a future in his father's firm, began to feel less like a partner and more like a life sentence. She felt a restlessness, a yearning for something she couldn't name, something that the perfectly manicured lawns of her existence could never offer. It was a hunger. The catalyst was a film studies class, a elective she took on a whim. They screened a classic Hollywood noir, and Nicole was mesmerized not by the plot, but by the leading lady. She wasn't just beautiful, she was a force. She used her sexuality as a weapon, a tool, a language. She commanded the screen, and by extension the room. In that dark lecture hall, a secret, dangerous ember glowed to life in Nicole's chest. That was power. The kind of power a cheerleader from Texas was never supposed to want, much less wield. She started secretly watching foreign films, art house cinema, anything that showed a different kind of woman. And inevitably, her curiosity, fueled by late-night internet searches, led her down a darker, more intriguing path. She discovered the high-end adult film industry. She expected to be shocked, repulsed. Instead, she was fascinated. The women she saw there were not victims. They were athletes, performers, entrepreneurs. They were, in their own way, like the femme fatale from the noir film, utterly in command of their own image and its effect. They were using the very thing her world told her to hide, her desirability, and turning it into capital, into a career, into a form of self-determination. The idea took root, nurtured by secret research. She learned about the money, the travel, the control. It was the ultimate rebellion. It was also terrifying. She broke up with Chad, telling him she needed to find herself. He was confused, then angry. Her parents were disappointed. She didn't care. The ember was now afire. After graduation, instead of taking the marketing job she was offered, she packed a single suitcase, withdrew her life savings of $5,000, and told her family she was moving to LA to pursue a career in entertainment. It was a half-truth, the kind that could still let her sleep at night. Los Angeles was a shock to the system. It was bigger, faster, and more indifferent than she could have ever imagined. She got a job as a bottle server at an upscale club in Hollywood, a job that paid the bills and taught her a brutal new set of skills: how to deflect advances, how to read people in an instant, how to project an aura of unattainable cool while being essentially a servant. It was there she met Sophia, a dancer from Eastern Europe with the weary eyes of a war correspondent and a heart of gold. "You have the look," Sophia told her one night, after a particularly grueling shift. "The all-American girl. But your eyes are hungry. That is a good combination." Over vodka tonics, Nicole tentatively confessed her secret research, her fascination with the industry in the valley. She expected judgment. Instead, Sophia nodded thoughtfully. "It is a business," Sophia said. "A hard business. But for a smart girl, it can be a very good business. Better than this." She gestured around the club with disdain. I know a photographer. He is legitimate. He does test shots for the agencies. I will give you his number. No promises. The photo shoot was her Rubicon. The photographer, a serious man named David who treated his work with the solemnity of a sculptor, was impressed. You have a natural quality, he said, adjusting a softbox. You don't look like you're trying. You just are. That's rare. He sent the photos to a friend, an agent named Brenda, who ran a small but respected boutique agency. Brenda called Nicole the next day. Her voice was like gravel being poured over glass. The pictures are good. You're green, but you've got something. I can get you a solo scene with a good studio. The pay is $2,000. It's a test. Are you interested? Nicole's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. The point of no return. She thought of Chad, of her parents, of the cheerleading trophy gathering dust on a shelf back in Texas. Then she thought of the femme fatale on the silver screen, powerful and unapologetic. I'm interested, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. The day of the shoot, she felt a surreal calm. The set was a professional, almost sterile environment. The director, a woman named Maria, was brisk and efficient. This is a job, Nicole, she said. We're creating a product. I need you to be present, to listen, and to perform. Can you do that? Nicole nodded. As the makeup artist worked on her, she looked in the mirror. The cheerleader was gone. In her place was a woman with a secret. When the lights came on, hotter than she could have imagined, she didn't think of Texas, or her parents, or the life she was leaving behind. She thought only of the camera. She followed Maria's directions with the same focused discipline she had once used for complex cheer routines. It was athletic, it was performative, and it was, in its own strange way, liberating. She was not having an intimate experience. She was building a character, a persona. When it was over, Maria gave a curt nod. Good. You're a natural. The envelope of cash felt heavy and significant in her hand. $2,000. For a day's work. It was more than a month's rent. It was a down payment on a new life. She walked out of the studio into the blinding afternoon sun, the envelope tucked safely in her bag. She didn't feel dirty. She didn't feel ashamed. She felt like a spy who had just completed her first successful mission. She had crossed over. The good girl from Texas was officially dead. Long live Nicole Aniston. She had taken the first, most terrifying step into the unknown, and she had discovered something remarkable. She was not afraid. She was, for the first time in her life, completely and utterly alive. The initial phase of Nicole Aniston's career was a masterclass in branding. Brenda, her agent, was a shrewd strategist. She positioned Nicole not as another ingenue, but as the girl next door, all grown up. It was a persona that resonated deeply. She had the wholesome beauty of a college sweetheart, but the performances conveyed a confident, womanly sexuality that was both aspirational and accessible. Directors loved her because she was professional, prepared, and possessed a work ethic forged in Texas football stadiums. She was always on time, her lines were memorized, and she never caused drama. The work was constant and lucrative. She quickly moved from solo scenes to boy-girl scenes, each one a new lesson in the mechanics and psychology of the industry. She learned to compartmentalize, to build a mental wall between Nicole the person and Nicole Aniston the brand. The money, which had once been a thrilling novelty, became a tool. She hired a financial advisor. She invested. She bought a small, tasteful condo in West Hollywood, her first real home that was entirely her own. By her late 20s, she was a bona fide star, one of the most sought-after performers in the business. She had won awards, been featured on the covers of magazines, and her name guaranteed a commercial success. But a quiet disillusionment began to set in. The industry, for all its upfront honesty about being a business, was still run by men who often saw the performers as disposable. She saw young girls come and go, chewed up by the system, their money squandered, their spirits broken. She remembered being the new girl, wide-eyed and trusting, and a protective instinct stirred within her. The digital revolution was in full swing, and Nicole, always a quick study, saw the future. The real power wasn't in being a contract star for a studio, it was in owning your own content. She launched her website, a direct-to-fan platform that gave her complete creative and financial control. It was a massive success, making her more independent and wealthier than ever before. But it wasn't enough. She wanted to change the game, not just for herself, but for others. This desire led to the creation of Bellissima Productions, a company she founded with a simple but revolutionary mission: to create adult content with high production values, strong narratives, and, most importantly, an ethical framework that put performer well-being and fair pay above all else. She poached the best directors and crew she had worked with, offering them a share of the profits and creative freedom. Bellissima's first releases were a critical and commercial triumph, praised for their artistry and intelligence. Nicole Aniston was no longer just a performer. She was a producer, a visionary, a leader. This ascent to power did not go unchallenged. A rival producer, a sleazy old-guard mogul named Salvatore Sal Franconi, saw her success as a personal insult. His business model, built on low pay and high volume, was threatened by her ethical, quality-focused approach. He launched a smear campaign, planting stories in tabloids and on gossip blogs. He couldn't attack her work ethic or her talent, so he attacked her character. He called her a diva, claimed she was difficult to work with, and spread rumors that her girl-next-door image was a complete fabrication, that she was in reality cold, calculating, and ruthless. The rumors stung, not because they were true, but because they were a cynical attempt to tear down what she had built. The industry, always prone to gossip, began to whisper. Then, Sal played his dirtiest card. He found a disgruntled former acquaintance from her early days in LA, a failed model named Tanya, who was deep in debt and willing to lie for a price. Tanya gave a salacious interview, claiming that Nicole had stolen a boyfriend from her years ago and had been a manipulative social climber from the start. It was a pathetic, flimsy story, but it was picked up by the blog Sal controlled and given an air of legitimacy. The lowest point came when a link to one of these hit pieces was sent to her by her younger sister, with a simple, devastating message. "Mom and Dad saw this. They're really upset. They want to know if any of it's true. Are you okay?" Sitting in her beautiful Pacific Palisades home, Nicole felt the walls of her carefully constructed life tremble. The two worlds, Nicole from Texas and Nicole Aniston the star, were colliding in the most painful way possible. The shame she thought she had conquered came rushing back. She spent a weekend in a fog of anxiety, imagining the disappointment in her parents' eyes. But then, the Texas cheerleader resilience, the core of steel that had brought her here, reasserted itself. She was not going to let a man like Sal Franconi define her narrative. She was not going to be shamed into silence. She decided to fight back, not with lawyers or counter-rumors, but with the one thing Sal couldn't compete with: the truth, delivered with class and power. She bypassed the tabloids entirely. She reached out to a respected, mainstream female journalist known for her in-depth profiles of complex women. She agreed to an interview, with no conditions. They met at a quiet restaurant in Santa Monica. For 3 hours, Nicole spoke. She was candid about her journey, the restlessness in Texas, the decision to move to LA, the conscious choice to enter the industry. She spoke about it not as a fall from grace, but as a calculated career move, an act of self-creation. She talked about the business of Bellissima Productions, her mission to create a better, fairer industry. And then, she addressed the rumors head-on. "They call me calculating," she said, her gaze steady. "They're right. I calculated that I didn't want a life that was chosen for me. I calculated that my body and my image were my own to do with as I pleased. I calculated that I could build a business that treated people with respect. If that makes me a diva or ruthless in the eyes of men who have built their fortunes on exploitation, then I wear those labels as a badge of honor." She didn't mention Sal Franconi or Tanya by name. She didn't need to. The article, when it was published, was a masterpiece. It portrayed her as exactly what she was: an intelligent, ambitious entrepreneur who had taken control of her destiny in a controversial, but incredibly successful way. The public perception shifted overnight. The smear campaign collapsed under the weight of her authenticity. In the years that followed, Nicole Aniston became an untouchable icon. Bellissima Productions became the industry standard. She expanded into directing, mentoring new performers, and became a silent partner in several female-owned tech companies. She had successfully bridged the gap, becoming a respected businesswoman whose past was just one chapter in a remarkable story of success. Now at 37, looking out at the endless Pacific from her home, Nicole Aniston possesses a peace that is deeper than any fame or fortune. She had taken the restless energy of a Texas cheerleader and channeled it into building an empire. She had faced down the cynics and the predators and had not just survived, she had triumphed on her own terms. Her story is not one of a woman who was corrupted by a dark industry, but of a woman who entered that industry with her eyes wide open and proceeded to reshape it in her own brilliant, beautiful, and unapologetically powerful image.